On the eastern side of York, an old world prison was destroyed, and with it, a whole lot of dangerous men let out into the plains. Very few survived, but the remnants of these oddballs and misfits in society made for a handful. The government spent years trying to snuff out factions and cults. Most are gone, but some survive, and hints of the older prison and its culture can be seen around the eastern side of York. One of these factions is the Nine Worlds. You see, the people from this old prison were not your ordinary failures or misfits. Full Sutton was a prison for those that were highest of risk, both feared by staff and inmates. It was seen as a place that almost was a mark of the man. If you were able to go there, or be put there, it was a sign that you'd done something horrible, or you were more than just bad. You were evil. The remains of these people can be seen in the surrounding area, both with towns taken over by mad souls and families that are simply odd. But Stamford Bridge must be the most odd of them all, now run rampant with those that claim to be Vikings. The original start of this faction is rather confusing and unknown. Many believe that it's due to local museums and old texts being found by those that are undereducated, almost as if they were able to read and briefly make out what seemed to be their history, but rather the history of the past, and old remnants of swords and armor chipped together to make out what would be their new culture, their take on being what they believe is a Viking. Although very few in this area are Viking in blood, they seem to follow it, believe in it. But what is a faction without its followers? And believe me, the followers of this faction are some of the biggest misfits and oddballs you ever meet. Groups of prisoners, failures, and just men angry at the world. They are not a group known for their softness, and they have been known to become somewhat of a nuisance to both the government and the 103, killing peddlers that travel the highways to trade. A man seemingly linked with this group, but almost not part of it, is the Raver, a mad soul that you hear tales of in bars, a man with his documents and pages about his apparent adventures and findings, what he claims to have seen in shards, what he has claimed to see all around the UK. He's almost become a legend in the York area, this weird soul that travels, but many seem to believe that in some way he might be linked, as he started speaking of this deity, this thing that could speak. He spoke about it so clearly many years before this faction was truly formed. He's a figure that seems to have his own goals, however, not truly part of the group, just appearing to maybe be what started it off, but that's simply hearsay. But a true member of this group, and a member known by many, is the Witch of York, a brutal woman that claims to have used dark arts. She claims to be Norwegian, but her name is not truly known, at least by those that are outsiders from this group. These rumors spread that she is able to heal men and curse souls, banishing those and harming them with disease. They say she can make men go mad, but, however, most of this is seen as myth, or simply fear-mongering. But it is true that she seems to almost be someone in power, almost a second in command. But now, onto the leader of these men. And he is a giant of a man. 6'7", he stands tall, and he claims to be Harald Hardrada's son. And whilst that definitely is not true, he truly does believe it. This man leads a group of about 100. He's not known for his charisma, but rather his fights. Those that dare to challenge him, if they fail, must be willing to sacrifice themselves into the shards. Not many dare, and no one is yet to succeed. He stands tall, strong, and willing to fight, and what he lacks in brain, he makes up for in belief. He believes he's a figure destined for greatness, the next to be chosen, as they claim, often wearing trophies of what he claims to be trips into the shards. On his shoulder, it's believed that he holds a Vesper's skull, beating it on one-on-one combat. Now, for any man to claim such a thing seems insane, as trained postilions claim these things can wipe out groups of 3, with weaponry, explosives, and more. But he does wear it on his shoulder, and who knows, maybe the story's true, or simply a way of making some believe that you're stronger than you are. One of the more interesting things about this group is their relationship with deities and the shards, and a good example of this are the statues of death. To many they represent symbols of shards, especially in this area of the UK, almost a marker of danger. But to this faction they mean more, a symbol, in a way like a cross. Sods are failed chosen ones. This can mean many things. A failed chosen one can be someone that has dared to challenge the leader, or a failed chosen one can be someone that made the pilgrimage with the belief that their time had come, only to be found in these shards, standing tall, a new tree. But a failed chosen one doesn't mean they're viewed as a negative or something to be shunned at. In fact, in this group, they're seen as a symbol of bravery, hope. To them, it represents serving something greater than you. You now serve your God permanently, eyes watching over the landscape. And the lucky few that are chosen, the outcomes are unknown. They say they're chosen to become part of the shards, to live on as something greater, but it's not really explained what that means. And of course, to question these oddballs is seen as offensive, out of line, so not many dare to. And lastly, their god, the Declaimer, this lab-made monstrosity, something that has lived on, supposedly going back all the way pre-war, and still living strong, able to survive in these shards for unknown reasons. The Raver was the one to start this myth that this thing existed, but then it became more spread, well known, and now it's seen as just something that is known, a symbol. This oddity is supposedly intelligent and a commander. And beyond all this hearsay, or what some would call a new religion, one must ask, why believe in it? If there's no proof, why sacrifice your life if you've never seen anything? Maybe parts are wrong, but surely there's some truth in this. I really hope you enjoyed that more in-depth look at what is essentially my first video on a faction in detail. I've been really enjoying this new format after that space video. It allows me to create without spending hours and hours and hours on everything. So I'm hoping doing this I can make more videos with more detail, as I don't like to make filler. But that being said, let's get on to my favorite part of the videos, breaking down the art, I suppose. Now, I'm not going to break down the things we've seen before in detail, so I'll start with the newest thing. Harald Hardrada's son, or Harald Hardrada Jr., or the second, is an interesting figure that I actually believe I designed over a year ago now. The idea came to me when I figured out that right next to York is an old prison called HMP Full Sutton. And I don't believe it is anymore, but at one point in time, it was a jail that housed some of the most notorious serial killers or dangerous people in the UK. It had many, many men that you could say are a little bit on the extreme side. And I thought of the idea that how fun would it be to think about what would happen if those men got out and were just allowed to live and mix in the world again. And what would happen with their families years on, and the culture in the surrounding area, I suppose. And then it eventually led to the idea that, hey, Stamford Bridge is right next door, and it's not that confusing or hard to understand that maybe at some point these undereducated individuals that have families that are dysfunctional could at some point believe that they are Vikings. And while it may be goofy, or more on the fun side, it kind of makes sense, and thus is his design. He is mixed with clothing that is representing what he believes is his home, Full Sutton. He even wears the uniforms that some of the most dangerous men in the world wore, that I'll pop on the screen, and now has a mix of stolen armor from museums, alongside a sword that is very famous from York, I believe. I think it's one of the oldest Viking swords in the world that is kept up to a decent standard, and a bunch of different things that are, well, a mismatch of culture and his style, I suppose. And that is the design of a lot of this faction. It's this very interesting mix of prison meets Viking meets museum items. You could almost say that in a game, it would definitely be a group that would be fun to attack or fight, because their armor would be very interesting. The mismatch of helmets and swords and weapons, and their weird interpretation of what is being a Viking. Now, obviously, I'm using the word Viking lightly, as they're definitely not what you would class as Vikings, most of them being English, and a lot of them not even truly understanding what a Viking is or was. But, just like Vikings, they are made up with very, very dangerous men that love to fight, and love a scrap, and that is definitely ingrained in this group. They are not a group for talking or discussion, and they are very, very superstitious. Now, it's unsure whether Harald Hardrada's son believes he is actually Harald Hardrada's son, but it would be kind of confusing to pretend your whole life to be that, just to be a leader of these madmen. But who knows? Maybe that's what he's doing. I really like this guy's design because you can see this kind of poor attempt to be a Viking with the engravings of what he believes are markings that mean strength and healing and all this, alongside what is essentially a mix of English armor and Viking swords, and just a horrible mix of different things that don't really go together, but it kind of works, and I really like it. I also love the Vespor skull, as I want to have things like that in the world that show a character is, a new thing. Kind of how if you meet a hunter and they have a lion on their wall, the skull of a lion at least, that would be almost a way of, to some, showing, yeah, I hunted that. Obviously, in this new world, hunting monsters is a whole new ball game. Anyway, definitely one of my favorite character designs, and I also did try to make him look a little bit more unique. Originally, I tried to make him look like an albino, and I think I've done a decent job at that, but I also don't love to make characters just about how they look, so I didn't feel the need to mention that when I was making the video, because that's not his character, is it? You know, it's kind of like when you play a game and they want to be like, this character's a woman. You know, you can do better than that. You can explain it in a way that shows their personality before you start talking about gender or sexuality or looks. So I don't want to do that in Barren. But that was just a little detail. If you did notice, I tried to do that alongside a nice tattoo on his face that is that of a sod. Next up is the witch, which is kind of just a placeholder for now. I haven't finished the design yet. I don't think I'm happy with it right now. I'm happy with the idea of it, the look, the smile, but I want to mess with the hair a bit more. I try to do a mix of the dreads and the kind of different culture clashing, but I think I'm going to come back to her design and change it in the future. But for now, it's an okay placeholder, and that's all I have to say about her. She's an interesting character. I try to think about what could be cool or interesting, so I thought maybe let's go with her just being called the Witch of York, as she likes the mystery of it. All that is known is that she is Norwegian, and she seems to be that of a foreigner, maybe that has moved over or come across, maybe after hearing of the stories. And last but not least, as I've already made a video on the Statues of Death that you can see here, and I've also made a video on the actual deity over here, is the logo. I really like this logo. I think it's based on an old logo for I think something related to like a Chernobyl police unit or something. I really like it. I don't know. I just think it looks cool. The obvious idea is 9 worlds being linked to Vikings. So they've just sort of stolen that because they've probably read about it. And for them, it's a symbol that they draw or use. But I don't think they necessarily understand it or what it might even mean, really. But one thing is sure. I think it is one of my favorite logos in the world so far. Something about it just looks so 80s meets bombs. It's really cool. Really happy with it. And I wish I could tell you all the details about all the different items and things that I remember looking through to get reference. But I drew this so long ago that I keep coming past these old things and finding myself going, oh man, I really wish I wrote all this down. Because it's so long ago. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed that video, and I really enjoy this new format, so please let me know if you like it, as you can show that by just popping a comment or putting a like, so I know that, hey, maybe I should keep this kind of style going. Anyway, thank you for watching. And as always at the end of the video, I just want to say, if you do wish to support this project, you can head over to the Patreon. Any support is appreciated, however. Simply sharing or liking means a lot. I'm glad to be back. See you again in the near future.